Hey, okay, so you have watched the YouTube video of me reading While the Rest of America's at the Mall from Flashes of War. And since my goal this month is to share lots of free and hopefully useful information about flash form writing, I wanted to talk about this piece, which I wrote because I know how it began, so I can sort of share a little bit of the story behind the story. Um, this is the first story in the collection, and it's the first flash about the current wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that I ever wrote. And it actually sort of opened up a gateway for me in terms of giving creative permission and piquing my curiosity about what would happen if I kept writing about war. But it really just began through research that raised questions. So I was watching like YouTube headcam footage of soldiers being ambushed and all kinds of videos as part of my research. And at one moment, a particular platoon gets through an ambush, and the two guys are walking across a field and sort of congratulating each other, but also the air is still sort of somewhat tense and precarious. And one turns to the other and says, "Hey, what do you think the rest of America's doing right now?" And the other soldier, without missing a beat, turns to his buddy and he says, "America's not at war. America's at the mall." And I was struck by the truth of that and the sorrow of that. And I wondered, what would that feel like? What would that feel like to be that person, or to have that feeling inside of you that you were willing to give up your life for something that most of your country was too busy to think about? So that question opened a door for my imagination, and my imagination created the Navy SEALs diver in this story, and my imagination created the scene of drug convoys going across the bridge. I looked up the name of the river in the story. I looked up the location in relation to Kabul. I made sure that, around that, during these years, that there were still issues of drug convoys, and that in fact American soldiers were having to deal with that. So I made sure that that part was true, but the rest of it I let myself dream up. And actually sort of having those facts in place gave me a really nice container, because I had to stick to those, and then all I had to do from there was like fill in the gaps. Like, okay, there's a drug convoy, we've got a guy diving underwater, we've got this is happening at night. Night vision goggles do exist, and they do make some that go underwater. So all that stuff was in place, and then I had to find the character. I knew what I wanted him to be feeling. I wanted him to feel that feeling of betrayal and fatigue and everything else that was summed up in the research I had discovered watching that headcam footage on YouTube. So then I needed my words and my story, and I started right in the middle of the action, which is something that's really useful in flash form writing, fiction or nonfiction. So don't start right before with the big buildup. Start right in the middle. Or sometimes you can start after and like the other story is told, but a lot of times you start in medias res. So I start in right in the middle. This guy's getting fired at. We don't have time to ask questions about why. The story just goes and goes from there. But the trump isn't in the fact that his life is at stake. The trump is in the fact that he is a human being too, and has feelings that you or I or someone else, maybe not even being fired at, could relate to. And so it sort of bridges the gap between those two experiences. Start out with that action, move right into his reaction. And what's his reaction to being fired at? Sure, there's the tactical reaction of dodging bullets, trying to keep yourself alive. But the reaction, that's what anyone would do, right? But the reaction that characterizes him, that really shows who he is as a person and what his worldview is the fact that seeing those bullets come at him underwater reminds him of his daughter's birthday party, and reminds him of tossing Hershey's Kisses back and forth with her. Silver bullets, silver wrapped candy. That's where his mind goes. In this story, that quick little flashback is bookended by information in the present moment getting shot at, then we get the flashback, and then we get the end of the story coming away from that particular aspect of the mission being completed. So it's a superstructure of a present moment, flashback, present moment, which I never get sick of, which never feels tiring to read about because it's not the structure that the reader remembers, but the details and the impact. And you can apply it over a one-page story, as this one is. You can apply it over the length of a chapter of a memoir. You could apply this superstructure over a 5-page scene and a little bit before and a little after. All kinds of possibilities. So that's probably more than you needed, but that's how the story started, how I got from curiosity to emotion to structure, what I think the structure is doing, and how I think it might help you in short form or long form writing, fiction or nonfiction. I hope this is useful. Thanks for hanging in there with me this month for lots of learning. And if this is useful, share it with your friends. The more the merrier. Thank you.